We want to know from you, what do you make of how more energized it seems the team is around Kyrie Irving than Luka? Is that a real thing or just perception?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you could see how much faster they were playing in Kyrie's first couple games. Luka missed both those games against the Clippers and then the first one against the Kings. That was just really getting out and running, and I think you bring a superstar guy in like Kyrie who, say what you want as a fan, but he is beloved by all players. I mean, when was the last time you saw an opposing player come up to a guy that isn't Luka and like dap him up after a game? Like, players revere Kyrie. And so I think everyone on the team was just stoked that he's here. And they had an extra pep in their step and everything. And, unfortunately, once Luka came back, I don't really think it was all because of Luka, but the pace really slowed down a little bit. And, things kind of got weird against the Wolves in that first game that they played at home. So, I think if the players can continue channeling their excitement into playing with more energy, especially on the defensive end, then that's the best way to go because that side of things has been a little awkward these last few games.
Is there something to the idea that Kyrie gets them more involved and that's the direct result of their involvement?
Maybe. I think the difference in the way that they're deployed, right? Luka brings the ball up the floor, and they've used Kyrie like coming off screens, moving off the ball, cutting, things like that. And whenever you implement stuff that's happening away from the ball, away from the action, it bends and breaks the defense in ways that we just don't typically see in the Luka-led offense. Kyrie's coming off a curl or a pin down, or you're trying to get him posted up. Well, all of a sudden the defense is going to tilt the floor a little bit in his direction in spots that normally the Mavs just never really go to. So I think it's just kind of a different look. And out of those actions, out of those cuts, out of that off-ball movement, you can create a lot of different looks too. So it's kind of a little bit of both. I think Kyrie is maybe looking to make quicker passes, but also the way that he's being deployed makes that a little more doable too.
So with the genius of everybody involved, you feel like in due time and maybe short time, we'll get the best of both worlds?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they have had, if one practice together, they've had one practice together. They've had 0 shoot-arounds together, so they haven't had a lot of time to put stuff on the floor. And hopefully, they're going to be able to do that after the break, because not only are they going to have some time off, some time to rest, recover, or whatever, they're going to have a full practice before they play the Spurs, and then they play 6 straight games at home. So that's no travel days, no plane flights, no back-to-backs, no nothing. You can just have nice, solid practice days in between games, and hopefully, they'll kind of advance pretty quickly from there.
Chatting with Bobby Karalla, DallasMavericks.com, right here on the Diamond Factory Fan Hotline. Right here in the GBag Nation. Now, we've been curious about the Jason Kidd comments the other day about the defense and how, we don't need to worry about it's not 80 to 80 games. We play offense, new age basketball. What was your reaction to that? Because there's no way he's being serious, is he?
Yeah, no. I mean, that quote got cut off a little bit. He went on to say, well, yeah, obviously we need to do better. J-Kidd does get a little sassy from time to time, I got to say. He keeps a pretty kind of even demeanor, unlike a guy like Rick Carlisle or Avery Johnson, who is going to let you know if they're having a bad time. J-Kidd is going to sound the exact same way. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a coach whose entire identity, his entire philosophy rests on the defensive side of the ball. When he got hired, his intro press conference, he said, we're going to play some defense in Dallas. Dallas finally turned it around last season when they started playing a little bit of defense. And, that side of the ball, they're really just kind of falling apart right now. And so, J-Kidd is trying anything and everything, rolling out JaVale McGee, starting Frank Ntilikina. Heck, he put Ntilikina on Rudy Gobert in the fourth quarter the other night against Minnesota. He is trying anything to see what works. But I think, it's not even a tactical fix. I think the team just has to collectively, to a man, just play harder on that side of the ball. Otherwise, they're going to keep giving up a bunch of easy baskets, and it's really, really hard to win games when the other team is shooting 50, 55, 60% from the floor and scoring like 60 or 70 points in the paint. Like, you're just making it really, really hard on yourself in that circumstance.
Bobby, I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but who has the bigger adjustment between Kyrie and Luka?
Ooh, good question. I don't really think Kyrie needs to adjust too much, to be honest, because Luka does a lot of the same stuff that LeBron does and did, whenever Kyrie was playing in Cleveland. Now, he was on the ball a lot more, both in Brooklyn and Boston, than he probably will be here, but Kyrie is used to doing that. Luka, at any point in his career, has never really played with a guy who's obviously as good as Kyrie, but also can do as many different things with the ball as he can. I mean, probably the best player he's played with in the backcourt was Goran Dragic in the 2017 Eurobasket tournament that Slovenia ended up winning. You know, Dragic was really kind of like the guy on that team for most of the tournament. And Luka was kind of playing off ball, getting a lot more assists, shooting more threes, things like that. So, you know, but that was only like 9 games. You know, that's not a whole lot of experience. So I think Luka's going to have to learn not only, you know, when to defer, when to let Kyrie take over, when to let him bring the ball up the floor, initiate the offense. You know, if Kyrie's got the hot hand, hey, let's keep feeding him, let him cook. But also, you know, now that this team does have a little more speed and a little more quickness in the backcourt, you know, Luka's going to have to learn to say, hey, let them run. You know, I'll make my way down the floor eventually, but if I get the rebound, look for the outlet pass. Or if someone else gets the rebound, let them hightail it down the floor. You know, we don't have to, you know, really slowly and methodically work our way into the perfectly spaced half-court set. We can just kind of beat teams with speed, and then if we can't do that at first, then they can kick it out to me, and I can pick the defense apart. So I think there's quite a bit of adjustment, or at least, you know, maybe like compromising that Luka's going to have to do. But, you know, I'm excited to see him do it. He's never really had to make an adjustment in his career so far in the NBA. So, you know, this is kind of the first challenge or the first sort of change he's going to have to make. And I'm really curious to see how he does it. And
Bobby, could you educate me on transition defense? It sounds like to me that the Mavs are kind of getting killed on that.
They are. They are. And it's not just run out layups and dunks. It's a little more insidious than that. You know, the way the Mavs space the floor, especially whenever Luka's in the game, is typically they're going to have a guy in either corner. And almost always it's like your Reggie Bullock, your Josh Green, before it was your Dorian Finney-Smith or your Maxi Kleber. Like, these are not only really good shooters, but they're also your best and your most athletic defenders. And so they're beginning, whenever a shot goes up, they're beginning as far away from the other team's rim as possible. So they got to get back down the floor quick. And also, the Mavs usually have Dwight Powell or JaVale McGee or Christian Wood on the floor. They're usually close to the rim. And Luka takes a lot of either threes from the top of the key or takes a lot of layups in the paint. And so Luka's either the only man back or he's even further behind the play than somebody like Josh Green would be. So, you know, when the Mavs miss a shot, there's always either 3 or 4 players that have to sprint back. And if even one of them doesn't do it, you know, if Luka's arguing a no call, or, you know, if Christian Wood takes a jumper and is kind of like holding his follow through and doesn't get back in time, or if Reggie Bullock misses a shot and goes for his own rebound and doesn't get it, you know, if one of those guys messes up or stays behind the play, then you're playing 4-on-3 or 5-on-4 the other way. And again, maybe it's not like a dribble, pass, dunk. Maybe it's a, hey, we got an odd man advantage on the left side of the floor. Let's swing it, drive, kick it out to the corner, and it's a 3, 9 seconds into the shot clock. And so we're not exactly seeing, end-to-end windshield wiper kind of basketball against Dallas, but teams are just constantly, almost every time the Mavs miss a shot, they constantly are getting an odd man advantage at the other end of the floor. And it's just really, really hard to defend 5-on-5 in the NBA, let alone 4-on-5 or 3-on-4. So, these guys have got to, it's all effort. They've got to all get back and get in position and get set, because when they do, they're a pretty good defense, but when they don't, they are among the worst in the league.
Bobby Karalla, Mavs.com with us here in the GBag Nation. How much does getting Kleber back defensively help things? It feels like they keep pointing to him, and it's like, is that really going to be enough to save this thing?
I mean, I don't know that his presence alone will completely turn it around, but, schematically speaking, he's the only guy on their roster that can defend on the perimeter and at the rim. And so you can play him either with Christian Wood and allow Wood or McGee or Dwight Powell to stick at the rim and just be tall, or you can put Maxey at the rim and surround him with athletes that can defend on the perimeter, or at least they can try to defend on the perimeter. So he's very versatile, and, it's what he represents that matters a whole lot. Dallas last season had Maxey, Reggie Bullock, and Dorian Finney-Smith, and then, Josh Green every now and then. Since the trade and since Kleber's injury, it's been Reggie Bullock and Josh Green, and that's it. Everybody else is trying to get buckets, and, they're paid to score. They're not paid to defend. So getting him back is just another guy that is going to focus on the defensive end of the floor. And sometimes that is all it takes, you know. And if you look at the Mavs record in games where their defensive rating has been like really, really bad, they're losing like all of those games. Their records in games when their defensive rating is at least just like slightly below average is extremely positive. So, you know, I don't think Maxi's going to make them a top 10 defense, but maybe Maxi's return, instead of being like the 28th defense, bumps them up to like 23rd, and that could win you an extra game or two. So, you know, I don't think at this point, I don't think the Mavs are going to end up in the top 10 like they did last year, but you certainly don't want to be anywhere near the bottom 5 because it is just, it's tough to win shootouts night after night. You know, you got to be able to rely on your defense at least in some capacity.
What's the expectation for Justin Holiday coming in now?
I don't know. You know, he wasn't really playing a whole lot with Atlanta. In fact, I mean, he was getting DNP'd like pretty regularly after the first few weeks of the year. They were dealing with some injuries, so he was playing quite a bit. Since then, not really at all. You know, I think his skill set and what he can bring to the team is pretty similar to like what Reggie Bullock does or what Dorian Finney-Smith did. You know, kind of a pure 3-and-D player, you know, versatile defender, 6'6", 180, so he's a little wiry. You know, he's not going to like bang down low with thick guys or like shut down the LeBrons or the Giannis's of the world. But he can definitely keep up with like your shooting guards and your small forwards, and he can hit corner threes at the other end of the floor. And hey, I mean, if you're a positive or even an average defender and you can hit corner threes, you're going to get plenty of good looks playing with Luka and Kyrie. So I think whenever he does get in the game, you know, he'll be able to make an impact, but I'm not sure that he's going to be playing like 15, 20 minutes a night. You know, I think it might be depending on the matchup, or if a guy's out, then maybe that's whenever he'll get in the game.
Bobby, where do the Mavs fit in the pecking order in the West? Are you worried at all about them being a possible play-in team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super worried just because, I mean, even if they were playing great, they're half a game ahead of 11th and like half a game out of 4th. So pretty much every team, unless your name is Denver or Memphis, you're kind of like looking over your shoulder right now, like, oh my gosh, you know, the Mavs have lost 3 straight games. They went from, if they would have beat Sacramento in that second game, they would have been the 3rd place team in the West. Since then, they've lost 3 straight games, though, and they're all the way down to 8th. So it's just like, it really depends on the day of the week where you fit in the pecking order. You know, the one reason for optimism, or the one reason to feel at least a little confident about where this thing is headed, is for the rest of the season, Dallas has one of, if not the easiest opponent remaining strength of schedule in terms of like opponent win percentage for the season. They play the Spurs 3 times. They play the Hornets twice. You know, they do play the Sixers twice, but they're done with really all the other best Eastern Conference teams, which is really good too. So, you know, you get a lot of relatively easy games. Hopefully you're going to be able to take advantage of those. And it's a lot of home games coming right out of the break. So if they can take care of business, then they'll be in a good position. But, you know, you gotta take care of business. You know, how many times have they lost to losing teams this season? So no game is easy, but if they do what they're supposed to do, and if they can beat the teams that they're better and more talented than, then no, I'm not worried. But, you know, they got to show it.
What type of shape do you expect Luka to return in after his Mexico vacay for All-Star weekend?
Man, he wasted no time saying that's the thing he's excited about most, didn't he?
All the survey says.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm hoping that he relaxes, but I'm also hoping that, you know, he doesn't relax too much. That's I think the best case scenario has played out, in which case the All-Star break is on Sunday, and he's got to be back in Dallas for practice on Wednesday. So he's going to get 2 nice days off, and I hope he sleeps for all 48 hours. Let me just put it that way.
Playing his way back into shape for the first 2 or 3 games out of the break. Just don't come back Luka Doncic, and we can work around it.
Yeah, there you go.